Are you a better investor or trader than Cathie Wood at ARK Invest? Today I want to focus on looking at the ARK ETF, especially this ARK Innovation Fund, ARKK, and I want to talk about the difficulty in beating the S&P 500, finding the right stocks as an investor, and the dangers of individually picking your own stocks. So the best way to start this out is with a quick history lesson. Is after the March 2020 crash, ARK Invest had a monster bull run of over 255% from the low of the crash, and if you caught the exact bottom to the exact top, it was more of a 370% move. And during this time, Cathie Wood was all over the news networks. She was being talked about as the modern Warren Buffett and beating the S&P 500, which is very difficult to do. And she leads a fund called ARK Invest that has 45 analysts that specialize in innovation. And their claim to fame was Tesla stock because they were very early to adopt that stock, and they were very bullish on electric vehicles even before the majority thought that anybody would want to buy electric vehicles. And obviously today we know they're very successful, and Tesla is currently a top 10 company in the S&P 500. So she definitely made a great call on that. And then more recently, she's in a stock called Palantir, which is also on another bull run. But if she's picking such great stocks like Palantir and Tesla, why is her fund only up from inception about 220% instead of this crazy move of over 600% that she had in 2021? So the first thing you need to understand when we look at this is we need to look at ARK against SPY, which is going to show us that even though she was beating the S&P 500 by over 290% from inception, as of today, the ARK fund is right back where it started, which is why I'm telling you, if you're going to try to beat the S&P 500, it is extremely difficult to do. Cathie Wood is picking all of these stocks with a boatload of analysts that are supposed to be experts in their field at picking these stocks. And if you look at the Tesla performance against ARKK, all you had to do was just go buy Tesla, and you absolutely destroyed ARK Invest with over a 630% outperformance. And then even more recently, if you just went and bought Palantir instead of the ARK Invest ETF from inception, you are up over 1,500%. So even if you are bullish on any of the stocks in this ETF, you are much better off just going and buying those individual names. And these two companies, Tesla and Palantir, are in the S&P 500, which is one of the main reasons that Cathie Wood is not beating the S&P 500. So the moral of this story is no matter how good you are at picking stocks, definitely make sure they're in the S&P 500. Make sure they are good blue chip names, because a lot of where Cathie Wood went wrong and why ARK started to crash is because as she was losing money, she continued to average down on her losing trades. And this is a video I did very recently called How to Be a Good Trader. And one of the #1 lessons I taught you in that video was to cut your losers early before they get too large. And what Cathie Wood was doing is she was averaging down on her losing trades instead of averaging into her winning trades. So yes, she has picked winners through Tesla and Palantir, and another stock she chose that had done pretty well since she purchased it was also Coinbase. But even here you can see compared to Coinbase, she's still down on that. And if you had just bought Coinbase instead of the ARK Invest fund, you would still be up over 63% on a relative basis. So when you're looking at ARK's failures, while they had this success, they should have been locking in profits and averaging into their best picks, but instead pride likely got in the way as Cathie Wood was averaging down on losing trades, and then this catastrophe happened from the highs with over an 80% drop. So I would just say buyer beware on this ETF. It is very difficult to beat the S&P 500. You are much better off being in the S&P 500, or if you like some of the stocks that Cathie Wood is picking in ARK Invest, go buy those stocks on your own. You do not need to own this ETF because it is being managed by somebody who is being very reckless with your money. And I'm not trying to be mean. This is facts looking at the chart. For a manager to allow this ETF to drop over 80% with very horrible risk management is just a fact, and it is your hard-earned money that they are losing. So be very careful if you think you can beat the S&P 500. It is extremely difficult to do. So be very cautious here. Nobody knows what the future holds. If you are an investor, make sure you are doing your due diligence on the stocks you are buying, and don't buy into any hype. Make sure you actually understand that they're strong companies, and a good indication of that is whether or not they're in the S&P 500. If you look at the SPY monthly chart, you're not getting 80% drops, but you will at times have these bear markets where you're dropping 30%, and and those are typically buying opportunities because, as I taught you in that video, the S&P 500 is an index, and in this index they are kicking the bad companies out and they are buying more good companies. And this is what the chart looks like when you have a disciplined approach to investing. And the S&P 500 has a very strict strategy on which stocks can get added and which stocks are removed, and that is why the chart of SPY is going higher to the top right of your screen, and why the chart of ARK ETF is looking very crazy as if it were some degenerate gambler. So focus on those things that I'm teaching you to cut your losers early and only continue to buy your winners and allow them time to run. Because as you can see with ARK ETF, the only thing keeping it alive is crazy good picks like Palantir stock, which from inception is up over 1,000%. And then of course the number one stock being Tesla stock, which even from 2019 is up over 2,300%. But more importantly than anything, as an ETF that claims that they are specializing in AI and innovation, they sold all of their Nvidia stock back here in January of 2023, and from that sale, they missed an over 660% bull run. It's very difficult to trust a fund that says they're the cutting edge of innovation and analysis when they didn't even own the most bullish AI stock from the low back here in 2022 and early 2023. So buyer beware, this ETF is not great. I would definitely not consider investing in it. And if you are going to trade it, just manage your risk. And if you're bullish on some of the stocks in this ETF, I think you're much better off just buying those stocks outright.